What's up guys, this is Seville, here with another Storm Collectibles Mortal Kombat action figure review. And in this video, we are talking about the Tarkatan Warrior himself, Baraka. And if you can give me just a few more seconds, I'll have Baraka out of his package. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Baraka is the 10th figure of Storm's Mortal Kombat line, behind Shao Kahn, Goro, and 7 of the Color Swap Ninjas. He can be found online with Big Bad Toy Store and of course eBay, but beyond that, as far as I can tell, he's been pretty scarce. So let's get in close and look at some of these details. As usual, Storm has done a really good job of capturing the overall look and feel of the earlier games. This figure certainly seems to have walked straight out of Mortal Kombat 2. And while it probably does borrow a lot from the inner workings of other Storm figures, all the sculpts here appear to be brand new, and specifically for Baraka. The armbands around the bicep are sculpted pieces, therefore making it new, and especially the forearms. No other character will ever be able to use these arms. Baraka certainly has plenty of unique accessory parts as well. I'm going to go over them all individually, but first, I do want you to see them all laid out at once. To put in the long blades here, the short ones that start off in his forearms do come out. However, it does look a little odd without at least one set in, so I do recommend one or the other staying there. But, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to leave them out until we've looked at all the hands, so they're not in the way. The default set was the closed fist, so the next set I'm going to look at is the open grip. But I don't really know what he'd be grabbing, because he doesn't really come with anything to grab, but if other characters have something, he may could use them. The next set after the grip hands is a more relaxed pose. The palms are open, and he could potentially do some sort of claw strike from here. And then the final set is a little more stiff, with the index finger kind of pointing out. This seems like the pose he'd have his hands in just before he opens the blade and guts you with it. He also has an alternate head, where his mouth is a bit more open. This expression gives him more of a pharaoh look, and probably the one I'd leave on most of the time. The only thing I'd like to point out beyond here is that the teeth have a more natural color, but the prototype on the back of the box shows it to be the more metallic color that was originally used. Speaking of that color, now let's take a look at the long blades. They definitely look great and have the right colors and shape to them, but I wish they were a little more solid. If you look close enough at the short blades he had on earlier, the tips of the blades were already kind of bent and out of shape, and I'm kind of afraid these long blades are bendy enough that they could eventually get out of shape too. However, I'm glad that I can't say the same thing for this spark effect. It's definitely a really solid piece that shouldn't be bending at all. Instead, it has a whole different problem in that it doesn't have any way to connect to the figure. Instead, it has a little hole under the bottom that fits into this stand. Now the problem is that this stand did not come with Baraka. Instead, it came with my Goro figure. So if you don't have a Goro figure, or some other stand similar to this one, then you will have no way to use this spark effect. For the final few accessories though, they're not meant for Baraka directly. Instead, they're meant for his opponents. If you own any of the ninja characters, or just any figures that are close to their size, then the bigger pieces fit nicely over the gi or over the shoulder area, and the smaller pieces are meant for the arms. They fit fairly snugly and should stay on pretty well between poses and arrangements. Of course, once you get Baraka back in the frame, it can make for some pretty gruesome slice and dice imagery, especially if you have the other fatality pieces that come with characters such as Noob Sabat and Ermac. Speaking of the ninjas, he scales really well with them by being just slightly larger than they are. However, he is heavily overshadowed by both Goro and Shao Kahn. And just so everyone can get a good idea of how big he is, I'll compare him to many other popular lines. Starting with Marvel Legends, here's Iron Man on the left and Rescue on the right. Next, I have DC Collectibles TV Supergirl on the left, and then DC Multiverse Injustice 2 Superman on the right. Followed by WWE Elite Brock Lesnar and Ultimate Edition Ronda Rousey. Next, I have the NECA Ultimates Jason Voorhees and Jungle Hunter Predator. One line he definitely towers over though is the Star Wars Black Series. And finally, I have the Power Rangers Legacy White Ranger on the left and the Lightning Collection White Ranger on the right. And now, let's check out his articulation. His head does have full rotation side to side with a little bit of up and down movement. He does have the butterfly joints to offer front to back motion for the arms. His shoulders do spin all around, plus, combined with the butterfly joints, move backwards pretty far too. His biceps do have full rotation, and the double jointed elbows do fold pretty well. The wrists are on the same pegs as Storm Collectibles have been using for a while, so they do have full rotation and a little bit of back and forth movement. The torso does have joints above the abdomen and one at the waist, which does offer a pretty good range of ab crunch movement as well as full rotation at the waist. The hip joints spread out really well, and there is rotation in the same points. The double jointed knees do fold pretty well, the ankles do have full pivot motion, and the toe joints work pretty good as well. So, with all that said, it's time to run Baraka through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. This is a brand new sculpt that is highly detailed and incredibly accurate. He does have more than 20 points of articulation, and he is in scale with the rest of the Mortal Kombat line. He does balance pretty well, and certainly came with plenty of accessories. However, it is accessories that has my quality control gripes, as far as the blades being a little too bendy, and there not being a way to use the spark effect if you don't have a stand for it. Starting with Baraka, Storm did move their default price from $55 to $65, which I do think still is fair for the quality of these figures. However, finding them at that price will certainly be the biggest issue with these figures over time, leading Baraka to an 8 out of 10 stars, meaning he is an excellent figure and still a must-own for all fans of the character. So if you're a fan of Baraka and you've already been getting the Storm Collectibles line, I highly recommend adding this figure to your shelves. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video,
get over here!
And subscribe to Civilian Collectibles.